This offseason, we've done the same thing. Better never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
Good evening, everybody. It is the Georgia Show. I'm Jake Rowe. He's Rusty Mansell. We're from DawgsHQ. Full show tonight. Georgia picks up 3 commitments in the span of 24 hours, one in the 2024 class. I think that one's finished by now, Rusty. I think 2024 might be over finally. The 2025 class, Georgia got 2 more, one yesterday, one today. We're going to talk about the On 300, Georgia on the rise there, so much so that they bumped up a spot in the team rankings because some guys kind of were able to kind of rise in the rankings there. And then we got some talk about Carson Beck, and it's probably not the talk that everybody else is talking about right now with Carson Beck. Some glowing comments from an SEC expert on Carson Beck, and the Cavender twins we don't consider to be SEC experts. Sorry, they played at Miami, but ultimately, Rusty, been a little bit since you and I have had a chance to hop on here together. How you doing, bud?
Good, man. You come back from vacation, you fresh? You ready
Yeah.
to roll?
Was I on vacation?
I thought you were.
No, I was just down in Pearson. I was shooting stuff. I was shooting stuff from lovely South Georgia, man. I was on the banks of the Puddin Creek, buddy.
Puddin Creek.
It's a real place, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, well, there's a place right down the street from me called Booger Hollow. So,
yeah.
I mean, funny story, back many, many, many billion years ago, I was a single guy and had a girl driving over to go to dinner or whatever, and she was from out of town, and she said, did I just pass Booger Hollow? And I said, hey, you're close. So Puddin Creek and Booger Hollow.
That's funny stuff. All right, so these commitments, 3 in 24 hours. Let's start with the 2024 guy first. He was not the first to pop, but and I call it 3. We call it 3 dog day because hey, it's 24 hours. It's a day. Ja Jackson, man. I don't really know how to say his whole name. Jazair.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, man. 6'10", 330 pounds. There's a lot we can get into with this, Rusty, but I know how you are about big humans. Just what do you think about this pickup for Georgia?
It's just unlimited potential and where you're at now. DGD, I think you said my audio is quiet. If you guys can't hear me good, I've been dealing with some audio stuff. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me good. I got a new setup tonight, so trying to get everything right for the season. 6'10" and a half, 332 pounds, I think, with his official measurements on his official visit to Georgia. He was a basketball player turned football, had a chance to go play basketball in Europe, did not want to do that. I saw the workout. You guys, I saw the workout, saw some video from Georgia through some people. The workout from Florida State, I believe, is online. You see all the workouts with him in Atlanta, working with some of the guys, working with one of the coaches that used to do Jamari Sawyer and Andrew Thomas and those guys. So he's working out with some experienced guys. The thing you worry, no, not the thing you worry, the thing you wonder, Jake, as an offensive lineman, can you get enough bend in that frame? I put a tweet out on this today. The biggest human I think I've ever seen that played football was Jonathan Ogden for the Baltimore Ravens. He might be one of the top 2 or 3 offensive linemen of all time, maybe top 2 offensive linemen, maybe with Anthony Munoz as one of the top tackles of all time. He was 6'9.5", 340. But here's the one thing I know with him. Definitely can come through his hips, an old football term. Definitely can bend. Now he's going to have to translate his body and turn his muscle memory, so to speak, Jake, into football explosion, those types of things. The video I saw, and I wish I could publicize it from where I got it from some folks, but I mean, he comes through a dummy on a bag and a drill and absolutely takes a coach and just puts him on his rear end, like with punch. So it tells you he's got, but he's got a ways to go, but with this right now, the upside the risk reward at this point was an absolute no-brainer for Georgia. Easy decision after Georgia worked him out. No-brainer. And let me say this, Jake. He worked out for Florida State. They offered. He worked out for Mississippi State. They offered. He worked out for Florida. They offered. He worked out for Georgia. They offered. Everybody understood the what was going on right here. You know how big he is, and I think it's a great story. We'll see how this thing ends, but for Georgia at this point, a no damn brainer, man, to bring this guy in. I could tell you, he's not soft. He's got to listen. He's going to get thrown into the fire because he started class. What was cool, Jake, is he put a tweet out, I think at 10 a.m. that he committed.
Something like that.
At like 10:10, he was in class at Georgia. So he kind of explained today on DawgsHQ, this guy's been signed for a little while now. He's been a Georgia Bulldog behind the scenes for about a week and a half. Just announced it today and went to class. So when you look at him, man, no brainer, Jake. Absolute no brainer.
I tell you this, one, I already like him a lot because we were hearing he was going to commit at 11 o'clock this morning. He went ahead and pulled the trigger at 10. My kind of guy right there.
No doubt.
Already just on Jake Rose,
yes.
all good guy list right there.
Yes,
but you hit on something. You hit on something that Andy Staples and I were talking about earlier, and I'm gonna take you to another thing that Andy and I'm sure he won't mind the fact that we shared some text on him today. Yep. The batting average on working out for teams and earning an offer. Everybody who got a good look at this kid was like, yeah, let's do this. And you're talking about multiple different staff, multiple different blocking schemes, multiple different offensive philosophies. They all got to look at him and they said, yeah, let's pull the trigger and try to make this happen. Two, we brought up some big time, we brought up some giant people. Jonathan Ogden was one. You brought up Bernard Williams, who played at Georgia a little while back, 6'9" guy. Yeah. Dan Skinner, who played at Arkansas, is 6'10". He's still in the NFL. He went undrafted. He played for Sam Pittman at Arkansas.
Skipper, I believe.
I think I want to say it's Skinner, but I thought it was Skipper too. I couldn't find him when I was Googling, but I think it was Skinner. Either way. And then you got Dennis Rowland, right? 6'9", 5'8", who was also a very big guy, hung around in the NFL for a while.
Yes, he did. Yep.
I don't know that I could confidently say about any of these guys that they could hoop at overtime elite. Andy brought it up to me, and I didn't really think about it. This is like, man, if you go to that school and you're on the basketball court for those guys, you've got to be an athlete. You've got to be an absolute guy that can move. And I don't know that any of those guys could have done what he's done there. So we're not talking about first of all, I know there's not a lot of people in the NFL that have played at 6'10". I've made this point before because there's not very many people in this world that are 6'10", almost nobody. And then two, how many of them have played basketball at a high level like that? How many have had the opportunity to do that? Now, am I saying that this guy's going to be an All-American? I definitely wouldn't try to make that promise to you right now, but he's different. And when you've got a chance, it's a little bit of a unicorn type situation here. And, you're going to take the opportunity to try and develop this guy. It kind of reminds me of Jordan Mailata. Philadelphia Eagles took him in the 7th round several years ago. He had never played football before in his life. He came from playing rugby, and I know that was a contact sport, but rugby's different than football. This guy was carrying the football. He wasn't pass protecting. He had never kick slid in his life. And now he's one of the better offensive tackles in the NFL. When you get giant humans who can move, unlike other, like smaller humans, you got to take that flyer every time.
I think this guy wants to play football, and that's a huge deal. You gotta want to be pushed. You gotta want to get in the arena with Kirby Smart because the recruiting stopped for him this morning at about 10:10 when he went to class. I mean, he's going to get fed to the wolves really quickly. But again, this is not someone they're counting on to be a contributor this year. They're looking at this guy who has 5 years left if he wanted to use it. I mean, he's coming out of high school, overtime elite in Atlanta, did his first 2 years at IMG Academy, I believe, down in Florida playing basketball. Several schools tried to convince him to play high school football and play on both. Can't fault him because he just, I'm going to try to go basketball. And dude, have you seen the basketball salaries? I don't blame him. You know what I mean? These guys are getting $350 million, but doesn't work out. Doesn't want to go to Europe. And you know what? Elite. You look at his skill set and what can they shape him in? What can they mold him in? Again, you're sitting here on July the 8th, and you got a 6'10", 330-pound offensive tackle that just joined your football team. So it's interesting. There'll be a lot of eyes on this one. It's not anything that's going to help you this year, but this could wind up being a very big deal down the line. I'm telling you now, he's raw, but damn, he's got some power to him, and he's not stiff. He's going to have some limitations as being as tall. But here's the thing, man, trying to run that. When I saw Jonathan Ogden, I thought, now wonder he doesn't give up a sack, because you can't get around a human being like that. You know what I mean? If you've got feet and being able to do that, and I'm not comparing this guy to I don't want to compare him to Jonathan Ogden. I'm just saying that's the largest human I think I've ever seen play tackle. And I kept thinking, there's no way you could get a sack on this guy. How could you get around him? So this guy's got great tools to start with. And he will learn to play football at Georgia. So I'm interested. Everybody be interested in watching. But man, you start looking at that. Nair Daniels, 6'7", 371. Daniel Calhoun, who by the way, I think is around 320 now. He's lost almost 50 pounds. He's been at Georgia. Marcus Harrison, 6'7". Malachi Tolliver, Uni. And then you throw in those are just huge human beings.
No doubt about it. All right, so the other two commitments, Shamari Earls, something I think we've been expecting here for a little while, flips to Georgia from South Carolina. Listen, before this happened, before this became known, and our man Charles Power is not out there digging for scoop. He doesn't know the scoop and all that stuff about who's going where. He just has his head down working on the rankings. Before he made the flip, Shamari Earls was moved from number 69 in the country to number 19 in the country. We're going to get into the on 300 in just a little bit, but I think we've kind of figured out here, Rusty, that Georgia has landed a guy that has some elite traits at the cornerback position. Roos and I talked about this already, but wanted to get your take on Shamari Earls.
Man, you look at him, 6'2", 205 pounds. He is state champion in track. He is indoor champion. The number one thing you look at with Georgia is his size and speed, and that's what it takes to play defensive back at Georgia. And this is not, some people, some South Carolina folks took a shot at me today on Twitter saying I got him bumped. I have nothing. I have zero to do with rankings. But I know this. I've been around football for a long time. And when I started looking at this guy a little deeper and looking at his measurements and knowing what Georgia covets, Charles Power had him so far ahead of anybody else. I mean, this guy's been in the top 100 since last October. Yeah. It's not this guy came out of nowhere. I mean, he was a 3-star and unranked for everybody else last October. And Charles Power had him in the top 100 players in America. So kudos to our guy. He recognized him early. But when you look at him, man, there's only so many people that Georgia kind of recruits at defensive back. And this was an absolute must get. Unfortunate for South Carolina to lose someone like this. But, Georgia did a hell of a job. You look at Tavares Robinson and Coach Williams, Sante Williams, and those guys going out there and getting this done. This was a big deal, big flip. And it just so happened to be on the next day that he committed from Georgia, had nothing to do with timing. He was a huge riser all the way up to a top 20 player in America. And Charles Power kind of explained that today of why he was. But, man, you look at the speed on this guy, track state champion up in Virginia, plays both sides of the ball, elite ball skills, and he's going to be that's a massive pickup. Because I've talked about this before. 2024 in Georgia, or 2025 in Georgia is as good as it's ever been at O-line, D-line, and wide receivers pretty deep. Linebacker.
Yeah.
DB is down a little bit, and they had to go out and win some battles, and they won 2 today. In the last 24 hours, they won 2 out-of-state battles.
The other guy being Jaylen Morgan. Now, the one thing I want to bring up on Earls is, listen, if you don't know Charles Power and Cody Belair and kind of the way they treat their evaluation of prospects, I could have told you 10 years ago, if you'd have asked me, all right, I got a 6'2", 205-pound kid who is a 55-meter sprinter, state champion, who's going to run a sub-11 100 meters and be a big-time long jumper. Where do you think Charles Power and Cody are going to rank this guy? I could have told you really high. He's going to be ranked really high, especially when you see what you see from this guy on film and he plays all three phases of the game at such a high level. Let's move on to Jaylen Morgan because he's the guy we haven't had a chance to talk about at all. Rusty, I got to ask you, man, you got just a little bit under 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, safety, runs well, plays both sides of the ball, likes to hit, likes to stick his face in the fan. I can't remember the last type DB prospect that fits that profile that Georgia missed on. I can't think of the last one that they got that didn't end up being a contributor and didn't end up being a pretty dang good football player for them.
Yeah, one thing they covet is being able to tackle and do you show physicality? And they listen, they're not perfect, but they have passed on some players in this class in particular that are really, really high, really highly ranked, and they didn't offer, and they didn't take a committable offer from those. So, Georgia has in-person evaluations. They have guys that can play both sides of the ball. You show ball skills, especially at DB. Can you play both sides and show ball skills? You start showing these guys, and you're showing Earls, and all you're showing is a lot of offensive side. Then you see this, and you see an offensive play, but you see him right here in coverage. Look at him attack the football.
I mean, just lights a guy up.
That kind of reminds you so much of that play that Georgia had against Tennessee this year. Tyke Smith just blew the wide receiver up on that screen play and just makes a tackle. You have got to be able to show physicality to play for Georgia. You look at both sides of the ball. I mean, I've been around a long time with these DB guys and all over the country. Man, they love a kid that plays both ways because he's got ball skills. So if you look at him in coverage there, he's comfortable, trailing, ball skills, able to track it down. We're not inventing anything different right here. We know the traits, but one thing is you got to have some size and you got to have some physicality. You got to be able to run. You got to be able to run to play Georgia.
Another one of those guys that didn't hear much about. We were talking. We had 2025 discussions prior to the new year, prior to the spring evaluation period. Didn't hear much about Jaylen Morgan. Then T-Rob, and I brought this up last night. For those recruitniks out there, if you love it, Rusty's going to give you he's going to dig and dive, and he's going to give you kind of where the Georgia coaches are during the evaluation period. And I remember the specific day that Jaylen Morgan's name popped up on the year list of, hey, T-Rob is going to be in the Nashville area. He's going to see, Jaylen Morgan. I flipped on his film. I looked at it. I was like, man, this cat can play. I don't want to get into his ranking, whether I think it's right or not. I really don't care. He's a 4-star prospect. He's got good film. If you watch it for yourself, you'll be a little bit excited about it, I feel like. But this is a guy that, this new defensive back staff kind of had to reset their board. And this is a guy who, to me, definitely climbed on. I'm doing that. This is a guy, Chris Collinsworth thing way too much. I just caught myself. But if that board reset, and this is a guy who ended up on it.
Also camp, camp's such a big deal for this coaching staff and being able to work these kids out. So yeah, I like it. And how about Middle Tennessee, man? Jared Curtis, Nashville. You start getting, you get this player right here, and we both know how big Nashville is. We've been so many times with work and how that area has exploded. It's getting a lot of football players from Murfreesboro to Franklin to all the way up to Brentwood into Tennessee. But certainly Georgia is one of the other schools that's going there and trying to win some battles and take another player out of the state of Tennessee, especially in that Middle Tennessee area.
Yeah, you left somebody out on that Middle Tennessee area. Palmer Toms, also from Middle Tennessee.
That was a big battle. That was between Georgia and North Carolina.
Guys, come on.
That was between Georgia and North Carolina. So that was a big battle.
Stephon Chivers is a Brentwood Academy guy too.
Another one. Yep. Chivers. Yep. Good point.
Yeah. So, and then they got Andre Evans, I guess, in last class too. So it just kind of goes on and on and on. They're doing a really good job recruiting that area, both on the football field and in things that don't matter like sports writing. All right, so let's get to this on 300, this brand new on 300. We got the fact that Earls moved up to number 19. Guys, there were a lot of other really big movements, and I'm going to try to do these in the order of how far they moved up. Talon Taylor, Georgia's highest ranked wide receiver, moved up 24 spots to number 49 overall in the country. He is well within the top 50 prospects in the industry ranking. So if you're not familiar with the way this works, it can get a little bit confusing. There's the On 300, which is On 3's in-house rankings. Those are the ones that Charles and Cody and with some input from guys who get to see those guys in person. That is our rankings. Those are the ones that we can control, and that's the only thing that we can control, right? Then there's the On 3 industry rankings, which is kind of a weighted average of all 4 websites. And I'll mention them. It's On 3, it's 24/7, it's Rivals, and it's ESPN. All 4 websites that do publish recruiting rankings. It's a combination of those. Okay. So some of the, when you look at the rankings, the top ranking you see on a kid's profile is going to be his industry ranking. You got to kind of look a little bit deeper. The way they're across our 4 websites is below that if you want to see that.
I think it's 35 On 3, 35 24/7, 25 Rivals, and 10 ESPN.
I'm not 100% sure how it broke down. I know Shannon put it on Twitter a little while back. It's not something proprietary or hidden that he's trying to get into there. But yeah, it's something like that. Well, Talon Taylor moves up 24 spots. The next biggest riser, I believe, was Tyler Williams, who moved up 38 or 39 spots. And that's, it's the guy that, we've been high. I've definitely talked about how high I am on him. He's all the way up to number 171 in the country. You got, and then you've got Ryan Montgomery, who's up 80 spots all the way up to 200. He was at 281, I think it was 80-ish spots. Now he's right around 150 overall in the country in the On 3 industry ranking. Isaiah Gibson, I've already got myself out of order here. Isaiah Gibson is up 11 spots, and now he's a new On 300 5-star. He goes from number 24 in the country to number 13 in the country. And then Todd Robinson, who Georgia liked at running back, and then they worked him out at DB, and they're like, hey, we like you even more at DB. We really like you, probably safety star type prospect. He goes from unranked to inside the top 200 at 190 overall. Rusty, which one of those outside of Earls? I think we all kind of knew Earls with that physical tool profile that he has was going to move up. Which one of those did you kind of see coming? Which one of those surprises you the least?
Talon Taylor. He backed, he got his kind of ranking early, but then he goes to one of the national 7-on-7s overtime elite down in Orlando, that OTE 7, which is kind of the best on best 7-on-7 tournament, and just puts on an absolute show. And I remember all the buzz coming out from there. And, listen, you say what you want. It's Ohio State was trying their best to keep him from committing to Georgia. Brian McClendon offered early, and that was a hell of an offer from him. And James Coley, when he got the job, that was the first thing he did was carry over that momentum. And that's how Georgia goes into a Midwestern state and beats out Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State for him. And I think he backed up everything that we saw on tape going into this year. So big one for him. He is going to be a massive, massive piece. And talked to one of his family members and said, listen, it was a very hard decision to call Ohio State and say, we're not even going to take this official visit. We're not even coming because we're going to Georgia. His heart is done. So says a lot about him. And I don't think people talk about that battle enough, but that was a huge win to get him out of Geneva, Illinois, to get him. And I think he's going to be a big time player for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, for me, I would say it was probably Todd Robinson.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's my South Georgia bias, but
plays. Love it.
When you see a prospect on film, and man, I know what region he plays in down there, and I know what kind of football players there are down there. And it may not be. You may not have 25 SEC level prospects like you do in the heart of Gwinnett County or something like that. But man, you have got kids all over the place, all over the field, every single Friday night that are going to go play some ball somewhere. A lot of times at smaller schools, there used to be an issue where I felt like there was a time where you saw Power 5 schools, old Power 5, Power 4 now, where you saw those kids that had the ability everywhere to do that, but there were grade issues and this and that. But first time I ever saw Todd Robinson's film, I was like, this is elite athlete. This is a big time athlete. And I understand why he's 190 because he doesn't play safety. It reminds me of I played high school football. Our quarterback in my first 2 years of high school ball, kid named Rashad Butler, similar size, maybe a little bit taller than him. Played quarterback all 4 years of high school. Started as a freshman. Never played defense one snap. Then he went and started 4 years at the University of Ohio and was an all-conference safety. Did it for 4 straight years. I think he played every single game of his college career. Now he's an officer in the Army and is doing really well for himself. But that's kind of what it reminds me of, is like that kind of elite athlete that listen, it doesn't matter if he doesn't have, he's a big time, 190 overall prospect in the country, projects as a defensive back. Just got a lot of confidence in him as a football player to think that he's going to be a really good player. And I'm interested to see if he ends up a safety or star, whether he ends up returning kickoffs, because he's dynamite with that ball in his hands. I do know that. Another guy that is quite dynamite for us is our man Andy Ludicky over at myperfectfranchise.net. Are you a displaced corporate executive, or do you just want to put your career in your own hands? You could also just be an entrepreneur and you want to do something different and you want to diversify. Well, our man Andy Ludicky over at myperfectfranchise.net can help you out. Andy's a huge college sports fan. He's a franchise veteran. He's owned multiple franchises and businesses over the course of his career. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. You can call Andy and put your life and career in your own hands. And best of all, his services are 100% free to you. So you really have nothing to lose. Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. And I always want to say it, we appreciate Andy and his partnership with the Georgia Show and DawgsHQ. Rusty, Carson Beck's making waves, okay? And it's because of the Cavender twins is why. The young ladies, I don't even know which one he's supposedly dating. The young ladies who played at Miami, they were looking to transfer. I don't even know where they transferred. I don't know where they're at. I don't really keep up with it.
They're both back to Miami now.
Okay, they are. They're sticking with Miami. All right.
One went to TCU and came back. Now they're both at Miami.
Well, so apparently he's dating one of them. But that's not what we're here to talk about, okay? We're here to talk about an SEC expert in Cole Kubelik talking about Georgia and something that was released today. I know he didn't, tape it today or record it today, but he had some comments on Carson Beck, Rusty, that completely blew me away. Have you seen these?
I have not.
Okay. First of all, let me just say something about Cole Kubelik, okay? I've had dozen conversations with Cole over the past few years, maybe a few more than that, some in person, talked to him on the phone. Cole talks to SEC football coaches. He gets to sit in those production meetings. Cole can shoot a text and get on the horn with an SEC offensive coordinator, especially an offensive line coach, pretty much anytime he wants to get on the phone with somebody. He knows his stuff. I think he's one of the best in the business. I'm sure not everybody thinks that, but I do feel like most people think that. Well, Cole had this to say about Carson Beck, and I'm going to read this because I'm sure people, they love hearing me read that My Perfect Franchise read, I'm sure. So let's get back to it. Cole says, things have been shared with me like Carson Beck is seeing things in the Georgia defense like some of the coaches may not be seeing. He's that far advanced right now with how he's processing things, seeing things, and taking this team through their day-to-day routines and what they're seeing against their own defense. And I paraphrased there at the end because I wanted it to be a little bit clearer and not sound as clunky, because sometimes it can when you're talking about it. But, I mean, we know what he's talking about there, and that's the fact that Georgia's, Carson Beck's taking those practice scripts, and he's going out and he's leading those throwing sessions against Georgia in 7-on-7s and things like that. And it sounds like he's spoken to some folks in Georgia circles that have told him that number 15, while he might be driving sports cars and dating one of two or maybe both, I don't know, twins, who knows, man?
Not dating. He's dating one.
Dating one probably. Okay, they're in or out of his league. That he's also got a lot of football on his mind right now, and that there's some big fans of his who get to see him on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody is doubting. It's ironic. You look at that 15 number, and I don't even know how many games you got to play this year. Normally it would be game 15. You want to win game 15 in college football. The only thing for Carson Beck to do now is maybe win the Heisman. And and win a national championship at Georgia. He's got national championship rings. He's got an SEC championship ring. He wants to do it while he is the quarterback. And he could have came back to, he could have left and probably would have been a first-round draft pick. And, I think he came back with a chance to be number one. I think he got a chance to come back with a lot of pieces around him and another year of tape. And, nothing surprises me. I agree, man. Cole Kubelik when he does that SEC show, when they start the season, they start doing the film breakdown. It is one of the best shows on TV. I apologize for not knowing the name right now, but when they start the season and do that SEC film thing, it is freaking awesome. I love watching it and his breakdowns. So he does a great job. But with Carson Beck, he's getting projected as number one. He is experienced. He is super smart. He's got to win a couple of more games. And we'll see how he finishes off his Georgia career. But he's got an opportunity to go down as one of the best to ever play at Georgia. He'll be one of the highest ever drafted, certainly, that's played quarterback at Georgia. Can he match Stafford and be number one? I don't know. There's some people that projected that Matt Miller did the other day, saying the Giants were going to draft up. So we'll see. We'll see where this thing goes. And listen, I see the guys arguing a comment. I think he's dating one of the Cabin Twins. I have no idea. He
was seen with one of them.
It's on her TikTok from what I saw. Listen, I got a chance to talk to them for a few minutes in Nashville. I walked outside to grab an Uber. They were there grabbing an Uber. And I told them, I said, look, don't know a ton about y'all, but I'm a girl dad. Y'all keep on doing what you're doing. You're obviously very successful, and good luck to you. And, that was my extent of talking to them. They were at the On3 event, seemed to be super nice. And, obviously major social media following. So good luck to some young people. But, as far as we're concerned, Carson Beck on the football field, nothing surprises me. He's doing, he's going to do special things. And, you get past the 4th of July, Jake, and you kind of flip that switch. You know what I mean? Like here it comes. Now you start focusing in. Actually, I watched the Tennessee game today. I watched the offensive series, and I didn't realize how many, because you kind of forget. I didn't realize how many big throws Carson Beck made in that game.
Man, so many big throws.
He threw some balls in that game, especially to Dylan Bell. The Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, little slant right there in the red zone for about 35 on the money. And, Tennessee, if you're Tim Banks, you got to be just sitting there scratching your head like, how the hell do we defend this? We can't blitz him. We can't cover him. He's throwing people open. And so you look at those throws, and I'm going to go back and watch probably whatever I get, probably Florida next. Watch the offensive series of Florida. So it's that time of year for me to start watching games, watching tapes, but did watch a Tennessee tape offensive series today in the first half. And, man, he made some huge throws. This is special, man, to have a quarterback coming back like this. What's great in SEC Media Days is all these quarterbacks are going, and Carson is going to represent Georgia. So interested in how, what his message is. And we're 1 week away from SEC Media Days.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That's definitely it's always an honor to be able to go. It still always cracks me up. Before the 2021 season, it was JT Daniels, and how things change. It's not going to happen that way with Carson Beck, not as long as he stays healthy. But you talk about that Tennessee game, the throw that I go back to in that game was, Tennessee scores on the first play of the game. Georgia's kind of coming back down the field, and there's a third down and I believe it was I believe they converted on the drive where they actually went up 10-7. He hits Brock Bowers on a little quick out route to convert a third down. And he throws that thing before Brock gets his head around, and he knows that window is tight.
Yep.
And there's one spot he can throw it, and Bowers just gets his head around, makes the catch. Just the kind of chemistry you're going to have there. But the thing I really think the thing that, and maybe it's just because I'm in Georgia circles, and I feel like Georgia fans have selective amnesia, is, this time they had it with Stetson, like it was, like, hey, we were on this guy's side all along. No, you weren't, but that's okay. I know y'all love him now. But with Carson early last year, it was kind of like, hey, are we going to give Brock a chance? Like, this guy's not very, very consistent, And they, obviously Georgia knew what they had in him, and he got so much better as the year went along. But the thing, it's been his team all off season, and we saw what happened for Stetson Bennett when he had that team for a full off season. And I'm not saying Carson's going to make that kind of 21 to 22 leap that Stetson Bennett made. But the thing I feel like we forget about this Georgia football team is you had a first-year starter at quarterback last year, and he was really good. And he was so good that he may have made you forget that he was a first-year starter. And now it's veteran quarterback time. And I'm telling you, these in the day and age of the transfer portal, in the day and age of college football today, you don't get this opportunity very often. And I hope Georgia fans really try to take a chance to enjoy watching number 15 play this year and start his 15th, 16th, 17th, and however many more games that he starts at Georgia, because it's just not common anymore. And this guy's been around for a long time and given a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for Georgia. It's going to be fun to see just how good he can be in his second year as a starter.
As someone that covers a team, we're going to enjoy this because we know this time next year.
Oh God!
Every single day and every single comment in that thread right there, those comments. Who do you think is going to start at Georgia? So it's going to be. We're prepared for those and those types of things. But you start talking about Carson Beck and Stetson Bennett. I think the next jump for Carson Beck is obviously to win his own rings, but to be Stetson Bennett when it matters the most. And that's something you'll never, ever take away from Stetson Bennett, because the bigger the moment, the better that damn dude was. And that Ohio State drive, that fourth quarter against Alabama, he went 7 for 7 with 2 drives for 2 touchdowns. He never was out of a game. And, that's what Carson Beck needs to show to take that next step, because he is a more physically imposing quarterback. He's got a bigger arm than Stetson Bennett. He's got more pro kind of characteristics, but as far as putting a sample size and putting together some tape in Athens, that last step for Carson Beck is to go lead a drive to beat Texas in Austin, go lead a drive to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, go beat Ohio State, in Mercedes-Benz for the national championship, those types of things. And he's probably going to have those opportunities. So everything's in front of him. But, when you start mentioning Stetson Bennett, you have to mention how good that dude was, because, he was flat out money when it mattered.
No doubt about it. And, I will say this. I think Carson's kind of showed us a flash or two of that. He hasn't been that guy just yet. But, despite how as crappy as Georgia played and as kind of some tough breaks as they got in that SEC championship game, 15 made some really good plays to keep them in that game, even though it wasn't great for 3 quarters. Just couldn't quite get the defensive stop they needed to give him a chance to kind of put them on top in that game. So, Rusty, we got a question right here. Listen, we've had weather reports all season. How warm is it going to be coming up? Tell us.
There's still need to wear some sunblock in July. I can tell you that a couple of times, a minimum. There's 1, 2, 3. I think 3 that I know of that are silent right now that I feel like are good to stick. A silent doesn't mean anything if you're not going to stick or not going to announce. But there's 3 that I know of right now that probably would be Bulldogs sooner than later. And I would say 2 of those month of July, I think, and then maybe 1 a little bit later than that. So we'll see how things go. But yeah, there's still a lot going on there. Bryce Davis is one that, Steve Wilfong had an update today. I will have an update on tomorrow. That is someone I kind of reached out to today. That race is getting pretty tight between a couple of teams. So we'll do an update on DawgsHQ. And DGD, our guy up there, he's up there from that North Carolina area, DGD podcast. So he'll probably have, a note or 2 on here, and he's on our board as well. We always love when he's on our board. So I want to say this too, man. We haven't had a chance to be together on a podcast, but thank you for the month of June. Thank you for the month of June. All the people that are here on this YouTube page, the people that are on our site, we had a hell of a month. And thank you to all the people that just gave $1 to try us out, man. We appreciate you. Appreciate the people that's been there. And thank you for the huge month we had, all the new members we've had, and just really, really enjoying it. And Jake, you and I, as a pair of co-owners of that thing, we're winging it too, trying to learn how to do this and what you guys like. And had a meeting today about some new YouTube stuff we're probably going to start working on here pretty soon. So, trying to bring it here as well, bring it there. But thank you for everyone that's on our site. We had a hell of a month in June. Could not thank you guys more for spreading the word and being there. And if you're not, just give $1, give it a try. It's nothing. We feel like if you give it $1 and you don't like it, then we haven't done enough. So, but thank you to all that are there and that have been there.
Yeah, like you said, if you hadn't done it, what are you waiting for? Use promo code UGA1. Get 2 months for $1. And like Rusty said, if they don't stick around, it's our fault. If we can't get you to stick around, but we love what's going on over at DawgsHQ. And
my boy Nolan Smith, I got on me the other day on. I told him I would come and run a 40 at his camp in Savannah. I was just kidding, but
I'll run 40 inches in a camp in Savannah right now.
I told him, I said, how far is the hospital from that camp? How far is that hospital? And number 2, can you get a life flight in there if this 40 didn't go well? So
where's your closest stretch lab? You'll need to hit one of them.
Nolan got a good laugh out of me running a 40. So them 40 days are done for me. Maybe you put a Bojangles biscuit at the end, you might get about 20, 25 yards out of it. So.
All right, y'all. Bark After Dark tomorrow night. Chuck Oliver from 680 The Fan is our guest. Excited about that one. And we'll be back with you pretty soon here over on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel with another Georgia show. But for this one, that's all we got. Y'all have a great week.